we're live.
Hello.
Well, this is a little awkward because our other companion in crime, what's his name? It's been a while since I've spoken with him. Spoke with him Wednesday. I
Mr.
don't even remember
Dean.
his name anymore. Mizpah. That's right, Miz. Miz is currently, I believe, on a jet plane coming home again. Isn't that a song? I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be home again. Sorry.
Something like that.
Something like that. But yes, hello everybody. Welcome to Cosmotronic episode 2. Yeah, we didn't have one last week because we thought it was unfair to try to split all three of our brains, considering all of us were also doing something else. But this show is all about WildStar. It is all about everything to do with WildStar, the things that have happened over the past 2 weeks, which, oh my God, it's getting to the point now where if we don't do a show almost daily, we're going to be not able to discuss everything that gets released. So, we have lots of things to discuss tonight. Obviously not worth going into your typical news things because it's, I think, much easier in this particular show since it's all about the WildStar for us to just jump in.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. There's so many topics to cover. Rather than trying to summarize them, there's things like the Warrior and Esper stuff. There's things like the Fantastic Town Hall. There's things like chairs. So, yeah, why don't you tell everyone about the Town Hall stuff to get everything kicked off? Because that's kind of something that we're doing with the community.
Absolutely. One of the great cool things about the WildStar community is the fact that everyone sort of chips in and gets involved. And one of the lovely things about the community is that the developers actually listen. And I know for a fact that the wonderful peeps over at SVG have gotten together again through WildStar Central to host a second town hall. It's been a couple months since the first. I was lucky enough to be asked to moderate the first time. And again, I am moderating this time as well. And the town hall is split into 2 parts. You have the North American ones, so that it's at a North American time, which is on Monday. And then you have a Tuesday one, which is in European time, which I'll be at both. Jeez. And I will be happily moderating and allowing people to speak. Yes, you may talk now. Now, the topics in the way that town halls work is they allow... Well, not necessarily allow, but they ask that only a couple representatives from either guilds or fan sites or communities step up to the plate and participate. And then you can, the moderators, at least my type of people, will mention, we're going to discuss X now. For example, we're going to talk about PvP. At which point the moderators shut up, and it is completely up to the people who are present in the town hall to let their thoughts be known, their feelings be known, their opinions be known, and allow for what could be termed a very healthy debate. Now, to me, I would think that at this point in time, with all the information that's coming out, there's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of opinions. And the last 2 town halls were exciting to me because I got to see opinions and points of views that I didn't see before. And I got to meet people who I hadn't had a chance to meet. I mean, up until that point, all I saw were people in text, you know? And then to actually hear people's voices, it was like, cool, I can actually put a voice to it. And now in some cases, like with me and, you know, some of the others, you can actually put faces to it as well, which is absolutely brilliant. But the town hall information I will be putting for certain into the links on the thing. I was supposed to have it up, but I kind of got caught up debating something with Gazi pre-show, which tends to be a common thing now. What I should do is I should have just had it ready, but I didn't. But I'll put the town hall link up soon. But remember, Monday and Tuesday, that is going to be when we have the town hall. North American, both are going to be broadcast through the Late Night Dominion channel on Twitch. So please show up, participate, spread the word. If you haven't already signed up and you have a group of individuals, please do get involved. You never know who might show up to listen.
Fantastic. I always really think that WildStar is one of very few communities for me that's actually kind of turned around and said, no, we're actually going to get involved organizing stuff and doing stuff that's a bit different rather than just passively consuming everything that's fed from a developer or from a studio. So I think it's a really good initiative. And the last couple of them have been really, really interesting in terms of getting that wide variety of opinions because not everyone does every part of the game. And I think that it's great to be able to understand other people's points of view for the particular type of MMO they want to play. So.
I think a big part of that comes from the support that the developers give, though. You know, someone comes up with an idea and says, I'm kind of interested in this. And the developer's like, so do it. Oh, really? I've got the developers backing? Woohoo! You know, that kind of thing actually feeds a very positive community where people do feel that not only are they listened to, which is something that they preach extensively in every video, in every talk, in every convention that they go to, but they actually show it and prove it. They don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. So,
yeah,
but yeah.
definitely.
Now, we've had a couple of rather interesting things coming from Daddy Stephen Frost this week. Now, I say Daddy because the guy seems to be obsessed with calling himself Daddy. I am sorry. I am so Team Pappy. Team.
You see, I think,
wait, are you telling me you're Team Frost? Because Mizpah's already told me he is Team Frost just because I am Team Pappy.
No, I'm not backing either of the two. Well, first of all,
welcome to MMOBuff.
I'm confident that Stefan Frost can kick Pappy's ass any which way on the PvP battlefields. Of that, I have no doubt. However, I am firmly Team Bardic because I know that the pyromaniac herself will take both of them to school.
Now, see, I can get behind that, and I will state that I will be a supporter for Bardic as well. But when it comes to Frost v. Pappy, Pappalicious, man.
Having said that, I'm really hoping that this actually happens, and that they have some kind of trophy at the end of this. So they might have like a little dev team tournament or something, and have a studio internal trophy that gets handed around every so often. Maybe have like a 6-month competition or something.
Well, see,
that would be really cool.
As I tweeted out, you know, with this competition, what I want is a trophy from the end of it to put into my Protostar house. I'd settle for just like a fight poster that says Frost v. Pappy, you know, live, sold out performance or something. I'd settle for a poster for my house, but I want a trophy from the battle, whatever they end up doing in my house. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be like the professional on one side, and Higgins Bottom on the other side, and so you've got like the human and the Granite facing off against each other, like the main event.
Now you know what's going to end up happening. They're going to end up doing some kind of Wildstar thing where they're going to go out and play, and they're going to fight each other, and right before the daddy professional Frost ends up killing off Pappy, giant Rousdower named Bardic is going to land on, the professional and kill him because of the years of abuse he has been putting these Rousdowers through. The Bardic Dower. Bardidower?
I actually think that the Rousdower finishing move should be an Esper illusion, but we'll come on to more of that in a bit when we talk about Esper.
Yes. We will hold off on that. But yes, we had 2 amazing vines that really stuck out to me this particular week. What did you think of the capital city?
I think that the capital city vine, although we only got a kind of like a single glimpse of it, I think that it's great that they're starting to show off a couple of these bits and pieces. I'm really, really hoping that we kind of get a tour of each of the cities in turn, just to show not just the how big they are and how sprawling they are, but also to kind of take a quick glimpse at some of the characters that we might see. If you've been around Stormwind or Ogrimmar in World of Warcraft, then you'll know that it's the little touches that help bring a city to life. And I think that if they can show some of those, like Old Emma or something like that, doing her rounds or something like that, that'd be really fantastic. But that's going to be a longer than 6-second vine, though.
Understatement of the century. I mean, I would think, considering the awesome work done, and the guy's name just slipped my head. Why is this? And I wrote it down, and then I flipped the paper, and I don't remember where I put it. But the guy who did the figuring out of the size of the planet and the area mass and the land and how bloody close he was. When you start looking at the sizes that are actually out there, you have to think, what is the capital city really going to be size-wise to be able to
Yeah.
to accommodate that? And I think 6-second Vine, 1 hour Vine, as long as they don't do what they did in Final Fantasy, where I spent more time frustrated trying to go from one part of the city, zoning to get to another part of the city. As long as they
Yeah.
don't do something like that, I'll be okay with the sizing of it. But man,
Yeah, I
did
mean,
that frustrate me.
Final Fantasy 14, the original game
Thank you,
is in a
Starspun.
it was in a realm of its own. It was horrendous, and the city was just one part of it. But let's not
Yeah.
get bogged
Let's
down
not
with
go
that too
that
much,
way.
because we can both moan about MMOs gone by and how they were
We're
completely
here to
terrible.
celebrate WildStar.
Indeed. So I think that the kudos to the guy on Reddit. I'm not sure if
Middle
the
Sync.
names come up. Middle Sinks.
Middle
So
Sync,
yeah,
Middle
this was a
Sync, Middle
fantastic.
Snake. It could be anything depending upon where you wish to apply the vowels and what vowels you wish to apply.
Okay, fair enough. Um,
But thank you,
Either
Starspun, for
way,
that.
kudos to the guy for really working that out, and from calculating a single warrior leap to get the entire area of a particular zone, and then comparing it to other zones and stuff like that. The game looks like it's going to be huge in terms of space. There was one other really interesting comment that came out of that Reddit thread, which was from one of the Carbine devs whose name escapes me, who turned around and said that you are free to explore the world. So you can go off map if you like and explore all of the hidden areas that they've tucked away, which is fantastic for people who like exploring, like me, who want to play the explorer path. Fantastic. But it also means that we're not going to get the stage where we go completely off the map and then someone says, you shouldn't be here. It's like,
One of
no,
those.
they've said.
I still think one of the more cooler, you've reached the end of your map things was from Borderlands 2 and Borderlands, where you had these gigantic guns that just went, you have a warning, and then you're dead. You don't even get a chance to turn around and return. You're just shot. But yeah. Oh, I mean, he said something like, 7.2. There's like 3.2 kilometers or something weird like that extra that hasn't been accounted for, because one of the things that we know about WildStar, especially with things like the Explorer Path, is it's not the 2D world. There are hidden passages. There are things that go higher. So you're looking at a proper three-dimensional world, even with the mapping. And that, to me, is going to just make it even more fun and rich and exciting. And the best part about it is after you finished exploring, you get to sit down in a chair and rest your weary little feet. How'd you like that segue?
So yeah, this was for people who role play. This was possibly the best news of the week. Pushing all the class information to one side. It was just 2 screenshots showing people sitting on chairs. Now, I can think of at least a handful of MMOs where characters have not been able to sit on chairs. Or they have, but they've had to be able to summon the chair first before they can sit on it. And then it's kind of like a mount thing that goes flying around. So you have a throne that you can drive around the world on. But actually being able to walk into a building and sit down on the furniture, very, very few MMOs support it. And it was so refreshing to see, look, this is a guy sitting on a bench. And it's like, fantastic. Brilliant.
He wasn't just sitting on a bench. The Greenock was just there, and his hands were, steepled in front of him, and it looked like his foot was up when it was tapping. There's a whole bunch of tiny little pieces to this chair sitting that go beyond just simply the mechanic. We've actually added the ability for you to do so. We've programmed it in. We've added animation for it, etc. There seems to be a bunch more tiny little things that I think will help the characters pop more for the roleplay community, which I love the fact that Carbine has given love to them.
So do you think we'll have like chair-specific idle animations and stuff like that?
Oh God, that would be brilliant. I mean, think about it. There's a huge difference between sitting on a bench and sitting on a chair that has armrests and sitting on a sofa. So, if you sort of looked at it from, you have comfy, not so comfy, and restricted kind of sitting, you could have a whole bunch of different animations. You sit in the comfy one, you could sit back, lounge, put your arms up on the back. You sit on a bench, you might sit a little more proper and just put a leg up. And you might, like, if you have armrest, put your hand down and have your fingers, like, tapping or something like. There's so many tiny little animations that they could do. Time consumes, location consumes, putting the code in to actually tag the different chairs with things like that. You could be pushing it ever so slightly, but just simply the fact that you can sit in chairs. I mean, come on.
Here's one for you. Imagine being able to sit down in a chair and have your in-game pet jump up and sit on your lap. You could be there like an evil villain, like a Dr. Evil with a chomper cobble on your lap going.
I have a feeling that most of the in-game pets are bigger than Chuas. So can you imagine a Chuas sitting down and having something jump on its lap? You wouldn't see the Chua anymore, would you? But, why are you giving me these visions, Kazi? Now I want to have, like, this like, evil Mordash and just be sitting there and, you know, petting while all, like, my liquid's leaking out while I'm, you know, trying to keep my body from decomposing. Oh, man. So exciting. Okay. I just want to keep going.
Okay.
So excited.
So, in terms of other news this week, we have had the two kind of big class breakdowns. So we had a little bit about the Esper, which has started to come out this week, and we've got a load of stuff about the Warrior.
Yes.
But apart from those two kind of classes, there's also been a load of new stuff about how the game mechanics itself have evolved. So things like the ability tiering. So you could actually put points into an ability and make it beefier, which I think seems quite cool. I think the only thing I'm a bit precious about is that because you've only got a limited action set and you have 8 class abilities, 1 gadget ability, and they've mentioned now that there could be a gadget that does a polymorph, which I think is really cool. I'm hoping it's a kind of laser pistol you can pull out and go, zap, you're aroused now. I think
I want to be turned into a Unidower. Screw the Roused Hour. Turn me into a Unidower. I want to be a Unidower. I want to be a Unidower. Oh, but anyway, go ahead.
And then there's 1 slot which is your path ability, which is an out of combat kind of thing. So overall you've got 10 abilities which you can hotkey up. I think that having a kind of loadout mechanism is going to be fairly critical. And I think they mentioned on the live stream that they're planning on putting that in, but they're also planning on add-on people being able to do that as well. But the key thing for me is being able to say, okay, I want this loadout with this points distribution in the various ability tiers, so that I can say, okay, for doing my direct damage setup, I've got a really beefy single target damage setup with a bit of AoE where I need it and a bit of CC. So fairly flexible utility. I have a different setup for dungeons and a different setup again for should I be begged to heal or stuff like that. I don't
know anyone who wants a Chua to heal them, especially you.
Well, I don't know. For science. I think it could be cool having a Chua heal you. It's like experiments.
I think you get a little too involved in your Chua. As I sit here, like, going off about chairs.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So I think that that's one thing, the whole ability tiers, and I think that getting some kind of loadout mechanism is going to be pretty crucial for that, to make sure that once you can spend a while setting it up in terms of when you're in the cities or stuff like that, but when you're going out and doing actual questing, that you can just go, okay, this particular mob type is going to need this ability loadout, or this particular encounter is going to need this ability loadout, and you can chop and change depending on what you're doing.
Well, wouldn't you want a timer on that? Or do you want it to be, as long as you're not in combat, have at it?
Well, it's more a case of if I'm dealing with a load of really... take the example from World of Warcraft when I used to play a mage. If you're dealing with a load of really cheap murlocs, you want to go AoE heavy to kill everything in sight quickly and efficiently, because there's nothing there that's going to really stand in your way, and you just want to munch through mobs fairly quickly.
Did you
If
not run into
you're
Murgle? He was Murgle, I think is what his name was. But he was a big Murloc, and he was surrounded by little Murlocs. So I'm just curious if you never run across him.
I might have done. He might have been a small speed bump on my rampage through.
It wouldn't surprise me with you.
So there was that. But if you're trying to take down like a series of elites or stuff like that, you want to be focused very much on single target damage, bit of CC, bit of slowing effects, stuff like that. So you can take them down one by one in a controlled manner, in a efficient manner, so you're not burning through your resource, and you can kind of keep rolling from one to the other to the other. Both of those, because Warcraft didn't have a limited action set, it would just be a case of, okay, I'll tweak my rotation, pull in different spells. With WildStar's limited action set and ability tiering, you'd actually have different loadouts for those two scenarios. So it makes sense for you to say, okay, in this instance, I want this loadout, but for this type of mob, I'd want this loadout, and you'd want to be able to swap between them depending on where you are and what you're doing. So that's the theory there. And I think that you will probably find people build up a set of generic utility loadout, which will do for 90% of things, but it's more for the kind of the people who want to either min-max, or the people who want to speed level, or the people who want to try and tweak things more finely, stuff like that.
I think, to me, the reality is, you know, when you're dealing in a situation where you're looking at, we'll say, pushing past, well, actually, no, it makes a difference. Whether you're looking at PvP as your focus, or you're looking at PvE as your focus, and you're doing raiding, dungeons, or just questing, I mean, I would think that to prevent yourself from having to slow down, because they did say that there are certain types of buffs that will keep us, particularly with a warrior, you don't want to stop. You want to keep going. So in that particular case, why would you want to stop, pause, and rechange your bar? So you should at least have a bar that kind of has a little bit of everything kind of a deal, because otherwise you're kind of screwed and you find yourself locked in a situation. Though, to be fair, a lot of the abilities that they show are AoE-ish. Or telegraphic, I should say. The telegraphs themselves immediately turn them into being a more viable solution than just single target. And you don't see very occasionally within the WildStar videos, you see fights solo against particular mob, but generally it's like a couple seem to be what people do. And it's like you build up the confidence because you're so used to, oh my gosh, if I take on more than one, I'm going to die, and things like that. So I don't know.
And that's all. It's also partly to do with the various different classes as well. I mean, back when I was playing in one of the press events back in February, I think it was. So that's a fair way back. And I'm suspecting that things will have changed fairly heavily since then and now. The warrior was very much a kind of sweeping arc attack. So yes, you'd have a kind of AoE effect in front of you for a cone, whereas the spell slinger had several abilities that were much more precise in terms of a narrow area in front of you that would extend much further. So you'd get a lot more range, but you'd sacrifice that arc at the same time.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the part of the balance they're looking at in terms of near range but a bigger arc, and far range but a narrower arc. But things could have changed quite substantially, and I don't really know, and we probably won't find out about the spell slinger till hopefully next week, but possibly the week after. But we'll see.
I think Stalkers are next. That's my vote, at least.
Who could say? Who could say? Apart from ability tiering, there was also this amp system that they mentioned as well.
Spellslinger is next week, apparently.
Fantastic. So the amp system, or advanced modification protocols, they look kind of like talent trees, where you've got abilities lined up in rows in a set of 6 sextants, I think they're called.
Yes. And to let you know, by the way, Scooter, sextant is actually a word, and it does represent 6. So you guys did do good on the stream. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So you've got this kind of matrix of 6 regions or areas covering everything from PvP offense, PvP defense. What was the other one? Assault, so direct damage.
There was support, assault,
assault,
hybrid,
hybrids, and utility.
and utility. Yeah.
So utility is for various things like crowd control and other utility stuff. Support was either stuff to help you tank if you're a tank, or stuff to help you heal if you've got a healing setup. And the hybrid one was to do things like off tanking or occasional healing, or for those people who like to play more than one role and stuff like that. It also seems that the advanced modification protocols are going to be much more of a kind of long-term goal thing. So you might chop and change your ability loadout quite regularly, but I think the advanced modification protocols are there to help you say, no, this is the actual kind of character that I want to play longer term.
Well, they did state that the amps, some of the amps you got in the world as drops.
Yeah.
So it's not really like you have access to everything to start, which I think is kind of interesting. Because, you know, it does open up a gold sink, which is kind of interesting considering the debate that Dave had on our site about cred. If you haven't had a chance to go look at it, it's WildStar, or it's MMOBuff.TV, and it is an article called Credit. And Jeremy Gaffney even responded and then responded again to it. So it's worth a look at if you want to see about the gold sink conversation. But, you know, by having things like that where you have certain abilities than your amps that are only available through completing quests in some cases, or the drops that happen to land. I mean, there's a great amount of gold sinking to be done there. But especially for us completionists who have to have all the things.
Exactly. So I'm really thinking that the amp system is going to be something that people start playing with and evolving out over a long period of time. And I'm hoping it's going to be something that's much deeper and more immersive. I remember some of the Final Fantasy, I think it was either 10 or 11, which had this huge talent tree system that you, and that was like, whoa, I can have all of these little things which all add up. And I'm hoping it's going to be more like that rather than having like the World of Warcraft or the SWOTOR or the Rift talent trees. Although Rift is slightly different because you have 8 souls, I think it is, and you can pick any 3 from 8 and stuff like that. But it's still the same kind of thing where you have standard trees, and I think WildStar trying to move away from that slightly and evolve it slightly is quite an interesting thing, and I'm really interested to see where it goes and what they actually do with that. They did say that it was very, very early stage prototype at the moment. So,
well, that was a lot about the visual design. The poor art team is like, don't show this, not without the caveat. I think there has to be something to be said for, and it was Final Fantasy X, because I spent a long time ensuring every one of my characters had unlocked all this stuff. I played that game a little bit too much. But anyway, which that's a whole different topic. Put that aside. But if you allow somebody in an MMO environment to have access to all of the stuff, I think that could cause issues. I think, however, what would make more sense is you can unlock all of this stuff, but you only can have a certain amount in. Because otherwise, what you've basically done is you've allowed a character to have all of the things for PvP, all of the things for hybrid, all of the things, and there is no more uniqueness anymore. There is no more sense that I have specifically built to be the hybrid. It's, I am built to do all this stuff. I am God. And I don't like God mode. And we've discussed balance before in a previous episode, and I firmly believe that the best type of balance is imbalance. There needs to be some way to counter everything. And if you allow everyone to have all of the amps at all the times, I don't agree with that, but
yeah. So here, I'm hoping it's going to be partly a points allocation system, but I'm also hoping that there's going to be an unlockable that happens over time. One of the great things that I like about EVE Online is the fact that you can potentially learn everything and unlock every single spaceship and get every single skill. But because they're all very strictly time-bound, it can take you months or years before you can fly the really big, meaty stuff, even if you've got enough money in your in-game wallets to be able to afford them.
Well, you need to learn how to fly the little stuff before you learn how to fly the big stuff.
Exactly, and I think that I'm hoping with amps, it's going to encourage people to specialize down a particular route to begin with, even if they might spread out later on. They'll say, no, to begin with, I'm all about offensive PvP. I want to be offensive in PvP, and most PvPers are quite offensive. So
no offense to the PvPers out there, believe me.
I couldn't resist that.
And now I have to bring up twerking Chuas just for the sake insanity, brought up previously by a conversation by the Disco and some things happening in the WildStar Central chat room. Yes, we heard about the twerking Chuas, and no, but anyway. So going back to offensive PvP.
So I think that if you want to specialize in offensive PvP, then fantastic, and you can chuck your amp points into there and unlock all that stuff and groovy. And if you decide you want to spread out later on, then you should get that option to spread out and unlock other stuff instead. I think that's a good way of doing it, to encourage people to focus early but spread out later, so you're not completely penalized for the long term, but in the short term you're encouraged to specialize. I think that's cool. I think there's no problem at all with doing that. But I do agree with you, even if you've unlocked something doesn't mean you should automatically be able to just flip a switch and activate everything. I think you do need to be able to have a bit of a limit. You might have unlocked all of them. You might not be able to activate more than, say, a handful at a time, but we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. And I'm going to kind of draw us back a little bit, because you made mention of something and I let it slide because we were getting deeper into a conversation. But when you started discussing the loadouts and things like that, you were talking about how they had made mention that add-ons makers and creators could create various things for these loadouts and stuff like that. I kind of want to make certain to point out again that I think I was mostly blown away by the fact that every single piece of UI that you see in game is an add-on. I mean, that means you have complete and utter control over your add-ons, which means your UI is your to play with. And I think needs serious mention, because that is, yeah.
I think it does two things. I think, first of all, it means that, yes, you can change any part of the UI experience, which is pretty important, and I think that's fantastic. But secondly, it also allows people who want to get into add-on development, or maybe tweak something or change something, to reverse engineer what Carbine has already made in order to improve upon it. And I think, as someone who's done coding and development myself, that's quite powerful, because it means you get a bit of a leg up, as if to say, these are examples of stuff that we've created already that you can now change and edit and play around with and stuff like that. That's pretty powerful. I think that's really, really useful. And the fact that they're bundling it with Apollo, is it Apollo or Houston? No, Houston, the development environment that they're working on.
Right.
So you can play around with stuff in Houston and see how it all works and stuff like that. That's very, very powerful. And if you're interested in the whole add-on scene, then yeah, it sounds like it's going to be amazing for you.
Am I going to be the only one? I doubt, actually, I'm going to be the only one who's going to spend a good portion of her time looking through the code, looking for comments like you find in the Debian kernel, or I should say the Linux kernel, where it says something like, does anybody want a Happy Meal for McDonald's, or something crazy like that. I want to see their commenting. I want to see how they do their structure. I want to see how they do their development. And I'm going to be, you know, like while the game is loading and stuff like that, I'll be opening up the add-on folders, looking at it going, okay, where's the comment? Are they actually commenting? And I'll be looking for hidden Easter eggs in the comment itself, because Carbine does not strike me as, especially after what they did with the Warrior AMA, where they had that, or not the AMA, but the dev speak, where they had that entire code thing, which revealed hoverboards.
Yeah.
But anyway, because of the fact that they're the kind of community that has gotten into hidden gems and things like that, you just know there's going to be something there. You just know. And so now you're going to want to go looking for it. Now, the funny part would be is if there was nothing at all, and you spent all your time, and the conspiracy theorists among us, the conspiracy Chuas among us, we're sitting there going, but there has to be something. There must be something here. Oh, my God. Oh, that was just great. But anyway, yeah, I mean, allowing people to get into development with Lua, especially, because it could seem so off-putting if you don't understand coding languages, etc. But having examples already set up for you, maybe you don't. Yep. You want to change your health bar color from green to, I don't know, the color of your shirt this evening, a plum color. You know, maybe that's what you want to do. you may find that it's an image that they're using and you can just modify the image, or you may find that they're doing a certain type of overlay with color and you can tweak the colors. To me, that is amazing. The only thing I say though is there needs to be a auto reset button in case you screw up big time and you find you load in and nothing is there because you screwed up. There needs to be some
Something
kind
like
of
delete-
validation and check as you're loading or something, you know?
So like deleting your WTF folder.
Yes. Yes. I feel really
So-
bad about that.
Yeah, I just had to bring it up. So hoverboards. This was amazing. So there was the Warrior Dev Speak, which had the disclaimer guy put a series of challenges in the disclaimer. Damn you, disclaimer guy!
Oh, are
I
you
shall
kidding
get
me?
my revenge.
Oh, great.
But
You've got a
the
Chua
community-
coming after you. Run, disclaimer guy, run.
But the community rose to the challenge, and I think it was 48 hours later, they turned around and said, "This is the solution," and we found this video, and oh my god, hoverboards! Yeah, it's like if you've ever been an 80s child and watched Back to the Future Part 2, and you saw the Mattel hoverboard, and you thought, one day I will have one of those. And slowly we've got older and older, and we still don't have any hoverboards. And now we're getting to the age where even if they do bring out hoverboards, we'll never be able to ride one. And it's like, yeah,
Well,
I know. And then they start trying to say, oh, we've put hoverboards in our game, and here's a video.
Well, they've done more than put hoverboards in the game. They showed the hoverboard during the Warrior thing, and one of the things they showed is that it still works on water, unlike the one that McFly had. It stopped working on water. Ours works on water. How cool is that?
That is pretty cool.
This is
is
badass.
pretty-
It's badass. I'm not excited at all about this.
I think McFly's would have been fine on water if he had a little like clip-on propeller attachment you could put on underneath. And you go. Fizz, fizz,
But see, then you'd have to have some kind of rudder attachment so that he could actually
Yeah,
turn
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that
yeah.
I could get behind that, but poor McFly.
Yeah. The cool thing that they did bring out there was the sneakers he was wearing, the kind of like ankle-high sneakers, the Nikes.
Yes.
They actually made a limited edition run of those,
I know.
and I was so tempted. But this is getting way off topic now. So
Sorry, guys. But yeah, so going back to the hoverboards, one of the things I have to point this out. The disclaimer guy mad props for an incredibly complicated puzzle. Mad props to the community who solved it creatively and not with brute force. But also mad props to the side of the community that used brute force to figure it out, showing yet again the difference in the type of players. The part that I loved about it, that now hoverboards, don't get me wrong, just like chairs, I get really excited about that. But you know what really made my day was seeing the mathematical equation that had to be solved, including, and it wasn't just your typical mathematical equation of, you know, x plus y. It was find the factorial of this, and then divide by this, multiply by this, pull this in. And to solve it, you had to know things like how many people died in Othello that weren't killed by, or no, it was Macbeth. How many people died in Macbeth that weren't killed by Macbeth?
yeah.
I mean, you actually had to show your intelligence, which was brilliant. It wasn't just your simple thing. And that mathematical equation, the beauty behind it and what it took to develop it, that to me just reminded me of how epic the dev team is.
Yeah. Agreed. Definitely agree with you there.
Just
It was a stunning challenge, and I really hope they get the chance to do something as crazy as that yet again.
yeah.
Sometime in the future. And I think that it would be really cool to do something that crazy and say to the guys that managed to achieve it, here's a little reward for you.
Well, I was hoping to do something with the Esper, but a big part of the Esper one was buy wild star, 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 buy wild star. I was just like, oh, subliminal messages. You must have burned your brain a little bit from the last one.
The worst thing for me about the Esper dev speak was the talk of empanadas. Now, empanadas,
I tried
have
to read
never
that to
heard.
somebody and I said it wrong. I called it something else. I I totally butchered it when I tried
So,
to say it.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing empanadas correctly, but from what I understand, they are kind of like a Mexican pasty type thing, stuffed with chili or something like that. In the UK and most of Europe, we don't get them. We have the Cornish pasty, which is like meat and potatoes, corned beef and potatoes and
Mm-hmm.
vegetables, in a like side crimped puff pastry thing with a lot of pepper and stuff in it to make it quite spicy. But that's about it. That's all we get. And so he mentioned, disclaimer guy mentioned this thing, and it was like, I must try one of these concoctions. But can you get them in the UK? No. The closest thing we can get is a calzone. Do you know how depressing that is? Being so close, but yet so far.
You cook. You could make one. It is not
I
that
could
difficult to
make.
go to Google. Go, how do I make the pasta or the pastry for this? How do I make the ingredients? Make it. You could make it, and then you could send me one.
All right. You would trust food from a Chua.
I'm a Mordesh. Probably. What worse could you do to me than my own body falling apart? You know? But yeah, I was kind of hoping there'd be more. But to
Well,
be honest, and yes, I completely agree. Oh, someone just said it in chat. Isgu, I also went to that same location thinking maybe, just maybe. That's the thing. They do it so often, it gets to the point where you kind of expect it. So when they don't do it, it's like the conspiracy theorists are still hunting through those lines of code to find those little things that you think are going to be there, but there's nothing there. And you're like, but there should be. So I'm going to have to keep looking. And it becomes like this obsessive search for something and turns into a conspiracy. Oh dear. Either Gazzy is looking at me with a very stern face for a very long period of time, or I may have lost him. Are you still with me, Gazzy? I'm gonna go with the fact that I think I've lost Gazzy. That'll work. Oh no. That deserves a screenshot and a caption. Can someone get that here? I'll turn my face this way so we're looking at each other. Screenshot and caption that. Do something with it. Oh man. Well, while we wait for Orgazi to rejoin us, I want to point out. Whoa. Oh wow, that's just do 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 do. I cannot be the only person who is this hysterical. Woot woot. I'm just excited about Wildstar. And oh wow, I should have Gazzy back shortly. I hear him, and there he is. I am no longer dual screening. That was just the bizarrest thing. It showed up and my face was split in half and I could go back and forth, and that was really weird. Did the Chua get your connection?
Yes, Chua ate my connection. Furious. So I am not amused with the Chua, but there we go. So there was an awful lot of meat that came out of the two Dev Speaks and the AMAs and the live streams that they did last Saturday, and they're doing another live stream tomorrow, I think at noon Pacific, 8 o'clock UK time. So
yes.
That's for the Esper, and I'll definitely be watching that one.
I'm going to have to make changes to my live stream that I do for my Undead Minions, because I really don't want to miss it. I love watching the live stream.
So there were a couple of things which really came out in terms of both the Warrior live stream, the Warrior AMA, and the Esper live stream. And first of all, the Warrior, really does feel like it's kind of got this heavy, beefy, tanky feel to it. Yes, it can do DPS, but it feels like it's more kind of predisposed towards tanking. One of the things that I really liked about the stuff that they talked about was this concept of momentum, being able to continue going and going and going because of the way the class had been designed. And that was mainly through their removal of using kinetic cells as a resource. So you use an attack and you build up kinetic cells, and then you use a different attack to consume the kinetic cells and do something a bit more powerful. So instead of moving from the builders and finishers, which is the system that the Esper uses, you have a system of just generally generating kinetic energy, I think they were calling it, and then using that with various other moves. So slightly buildery and finishery, but it meant that they could do a lot more playing around in terms of, okay, how does kinetic energy get stored, and how do you get it, how do you reuse it and stuff like that.
I have to interrupt you, and it is incredibly important that I do, because it is incredibly important that you take a moment and look in the chat and you you click the link that was put up by Robson Jawit. His name is backwards, Jesper, but you must click it. It is important for you to see.
I have not got in the chat yet. So...
Well, how about this? I will send it to you through here so that you have it. But I have to interrupt you because this is incredibly important, because it's about you.
Ooh, what have I done now?
Did you get the thing?
What have you sent it in?
I sent it in the meeting thing.
In the meeting thing, okay. In the meeting thing. Oh dear, oh dear,
So,
oh dear.
yeah, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to make a small modification. Gonna do this and a little bit of this. And just for fun, I'm going to put it up next to you. And what do you think, guys?
Are you messing around with something on the live stream?
I'm just trying to ensure that the audience gets what they want. And there we go. We have a Gazimoff right up there on the screen with you.
Lovely.
But yes, back to the kinetic energy and the resource that goes with it. And thank you, Jesper.
Yeah.
That was.
So there's that whole kind of issue in terms of trying to make a class that feels familiar to people. And a lot of people have played Warriors for a lot of different MMOs. And they really like...
Rage tends to be their mechanic. Or
Exactly.
I shouldn't necessarily say rage. I should say a resource that builds the more you attack or do damage, and decays when you're doing nothing. That tends to be the way, at least a warrior class works with resources.
Yeah, but I also think that there was much more coming out in terms of the way that warriors will do tanking than in terms of the way that warriors will do damage. And things like how warriors will taunt was really quite interesting. The fact that there are two kinds of aggro pulling abilities. They have a standard taunt and an intimidate, I think they called it as well. A taunt will place you at the top of the aggro table for a brief period of time until the taunt wears off, and then you drop back down again. But it will also act as a damage mitigation tool for everyone else except the taunter. So if you've got some large attack going off from the boss, if you fire off your taunt, that boss will do less damage to everyone else except the taunter, which I thought was quite cool. The other one was the intimidate, which will put you at the top of the aggro table and keep you there unless any other players are doing so much that they manage to overtake the amount of threat that you're building up. So it sounds like that any attack will deal a certain amount of threat, but warriors will and other tanks will have abilities which act as a multiplier on top of that. So they do a little bit of damage, but they do a large amount of threat on top of that. I'm hoping that it means that you don't get bosses that stick to a warrior like glue, but that will be a little bit temperamental and a little bit twitchy, and will move around depending on how dynamic the taunting is going. And also it will allow DPS to ride that fine line between doing hideous amounts of damage and death. And I think that's important as a DPS player, to have that feeling of danger, that you can be riding that limit very, very closely. It's something that I missed from raiding from games like World of Warcraft, where in the early days, threat was something that you had to be very fearful of, and you had to carefully manage, and you needed to have a few oh shit buttons to, yeah, well, you had the 3 center rule, you had the make sure you have ice block on your hotkeys, make sure you have things, other abilities.
Feign death,
yeah,
fade.
Exactly.
Which just makes me think more dots, but anyway.
Exactly, and if you did not use them, then it was your own fault. You were playing badly, because it wasn't just about doing all DPS all the time. It was about managing your threat intelligently.
Feint, yeah.
And that's gone away now. That whole system of threat and taunt and stuff like that, because the boss now sticks to the tank like glue until something else happens to make him not stick. And I think that's a shame, because it means that as DPS, your entire job now is to just sit there and go through your rotation and stay out of the bad stuff. Maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but you get the idea.
I get the idea. The thing is, this is an ongoing change that has been going across MMOs to begin with. I mean, I remember back in the day taking it, we'll say, Ane, where you had to have a dwarf priest because they're the only ones who had fear ward. But then there was the whole concept of, if you had a boss and the boss mechanic had a fear attachment or even an aggro drop in it, there had to be calls for stop DPS. Just stop. No, just stop. You had to, because if you didn't, even with all those other mechanics, boom, if he was on you, you couldn't taunt the boss back. But over the years, we have seen this transition away from that, and we've seen it go more towards, hey, look at me, your mama was a snowblower. Oh. And then all of a sudden, all they are is being attacked consistently. And it's so difficult to pull thread anymore or to pull off, and that removes a big part of the challenge to me. And I agree. I am seriously hoping that when it comes to the dungeons, when it comes to the raids and the mechanics that go with the bosses, world bosses included, when it comes to these things, I want there to be that element of, oops, I'm sorry. Let me stop attacking. I'll just dance for a little bit. You go back, you tank it, you get your aggro back tank. We good? All right, let me go. Woo! I like that kind of balance, because it adds a whole nother level of action play to the character. You're not just avoiding the stuff that's coming on the ground. You're not just jumping into the good stuff that your healers are throwing out at you. You're also actively engaging in the number count. And that brings back a lot of the utility that we've discussed in previous MMOBuff shows. Yeah. So
exactly. And I think there would be some really cool things that could happen with that as well. Like giving some DPS some kind of unstable buffs and stuff like that. So they get buffs that allow them to do a huge amount of damage, but also generate a substantial amount of threat, so that they have to ride that fine line. And things like the Veilstraz fights, for example, in WoW. And we think back on those and we think they were good fun because there was that element of danger there. But now there is no danger unless you do something obscenely stupid. And I think that that's wrong. I think there should be more danger, not less.
Yes. Now I'm going to pull in a thought from our chat channel, because I think this is a really good point, because we are talking about like the resource that we had for the tanks, at least within the warrior class. But Zokarad says, I think it's interesting what they're doing with Espers. They have 3 combo points, psi points, that can be spent on finishers. This is from his experience or her experience, whichever. A traditional combat mechanic for rogue classes, but Espers are essentially mages. Now,
yes,
this is a bit of a what?
So here's the thing. There are 2 types of magic users that we know of in WildStar. One is the Esper.
Darn you, redacted! Sorry.
One is the Esper, who is not really a traditional mage, let's be honest. It's more a psionics. So if you're into your D&D and stuff like that, then psionics are kind of telepaths, telekinetics, that kind of stuff, rather than, I call them, the power of the elements and the arcane and stuff like that to do various things. So power of their mind. what that means is that they're much more of an illusory creating class. So a bit like the Guild Wars 2 Mesmer,
Mm.
rather than a throwing bolts of arcane power or fireballs or stuff at you. For this, it kind of makes more sense that they kind of build up their illusions and then send them hammering in, rather than trying to do having a fixed resource that whittles down like mana or something else. And I think it's a nice, interesting, different take that fits with how they work as a class and fits with their kind of purpose in terms of how they are supposed to behave and what their background is and stuff like that. So I think that it makes a bit more sense from that.
I kind of agree,
But
kind of disagree in a slight way. I think what
mhm,
they've, I mean, a lot of people have mentioned, like Nini Chu and Stout Pint, they've said that in the AMA they asked questions and the answer they got was your Esper is going to feel like a traditional caster class. I
mhm,
think the introduction of the, we'll say, combo points, and I use rabbit bunny ear quotes extensively when I say combo points in this. I
mhm,
think this actually shows a transition of style that seems to be evident within Carbine's Wildstar more so than would say other games. If you want to look at it from the lore perspective, yes, it makes sense that they have to build up their mental energy to be able to release the migraine jelly.
mhm,
Um, Sorry, that dev speak just still sticks with me so strongly, but it makes sense to build that kind of thing up. But at the same time, we understand that a lot of what they did with the gameplay choices that they've made, the changes that they've brought about for the characters, including for their ability mechanics, something that they've discussed in detail as well. It's not about being the traditional. I'm going to stand there and target and tab target and just automatically hit everything. It's not like that anymore. So you need to have a variety of different things that you can do spell wise. It's no longer just an instant
mhm.
cast or a channeled cast. There's the addition of channel casts with a little bit of a lead in where you can let it go ahead of time and not do as much damage, but you can still get your damage in there, but you're in the process of moving or you're reacting to something else. I think it has more to do with the way they want action play to be in their game than necessarily um, like the traditional ones, or saying this is
Mm.
just because they need to be more powerful. Although I am going to back the RPers and say it's lore and that's why. But at the same time, I can completely. I see it as just being so different from other MMOs in their combat styling that that's why it is the way it is. Now,
Yeah,
some people
there's
had
also
said they
some.
compared it to the icicles and stuff that you see like with mages, but I don't know.
There's also something else. So, if you play, say, a mage in World of Warcraft, then it's all about rotation management, trying to keep uptime on particular buffs, and
Mm,
keeping uptime on debuffs and dots
mm,
and so on your opponent or your target. That's one way of doing it. And that works very, very well when you're doing single target with a fixed resource that slowly gets eaten away, mana, and where you don't have much more that's happening. You might have certain procs that happen off spells and abilities, but to be honest, that mechanic has been done and dusted for so many years. Yes, I love playing a mage, and I think it's fantastic. I think there's something enjoyable and comforting about just being able to go fireball, 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 or whatever. But I think that there's also an awful lot to be said for being able to move and dance around and stuff like that as well, along with it.
mm.
I think that people going from traditional casters will find that the Esper is familiar to a point, but it will also challenge them to evolve their gameplay beyond what they're traditionally comfortable with. Finding ways of using these combo or these creators and these finishers together to create even more damage, more than they would with trying to work out the best rotation and the best kind of dot balance and the best way of managing buffs and debuffs. I think that's more of an interesting challenge, particularly if you're going to ask people to move around a lot more.
Well, see,
So
I
I,
agree with that. I mean, for my play style, when I was playing, and I've only gotten a chance to play it at Res and at
Mhm.
Gamescom. Although my playing at Gamescom existed of 5 minutes of me logging in and starting to move around and look at some of the changes, and then I got a tap on my shoulder from one of the devs, and I ended up into a gigantic discussion about development agility cycles and all this other stuff. So my 25 minutes on the game gone, just because I was more interested in talking to them about the nitty gritty of things, but one of the things that at least I've noticed is that there is, at least with the ones that were presented to me and the ones that I got a chance to play with, no real cycle, so to speak. There is no real rotation, and it's not even
Yeah.
like you see in WoW. It's not even a priority thing anymore. It is very much so a, you have a plan in your head, you can't follow it, you need to deviate because of this. So
Yeah.
you actually end up becoming it's almost a little bit like Twitch play from like
Yeah.
FPSs. Only it's shifted away from the stand there, get my rotation to be optimal, etc. It's, I need to be able to do this, and I need to react to this, and I know that when I'm doing this, if I move to this position, I swing my camera this way. I've got my telegraph here. Charge it up. Can't make it all the way charged. Need to do something else. Do that. Back up. Dodge over here. Do this. Now I mean, there is so much more reactive play style to it that it almost turns it
Yeah.
into a first person kind of Twitch reaction thing. Not as bad, might I add, but there is no cycle. There is necessarily a priority. It's a whole something
Yeah.
else. It's a
And I
whole other
think that
can of
that kind
worms.
of having particular combos of abilities that work well together and synergize well is going to be something that becomes much more apparent and separates the kind of average gamer from the one that's slightly better or slightly more advanced.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. If you're dungeon running, having, again, going back to a mage that knows how to, say, drop a CC, turn around, capitalize on the vulnerabilities of the mobs that are in that CC, that route or whatever that you've dropped, and then do something else off the back of it to either pick them off or to sustain the CC or to do additional damage or to protect themselves as the mobs drop out of CC to make it easy for the tank to pick them up. The classic combo was something like dropping a Frost Nova and then dropping either a Blizzard or a Cone of Cold and stuff like that on top to slow mobs, keep them rooted, or to use their additional vulnerabilities. I think we're going to see more of that kind of ability synergy come into play more with Wildstar, where you get things like they showed with the warrior. He's got a particular move that he waits for the mob to do a telegraph, leaps in, does an attack, stuns him, and then has a couple of really high power and long cooldown abilities off the back of it, which do a lot of damage while the mob's vulnerable. I think we're going to see more play like that, which makes it interesting, but capitalizes on those like particular ability plays that people have grown used to.
I
So,
agree. I think what's interesting to me is that the design choices that they've made actually teach people how to play.
mm,
Um, if you are the kind of player who doesn't pay much attention and just attacks, it's going to take you a long time to kill something. If you
yeah,
take advantage of doing some kind of CC crowd control interrupt on their particular telegraphs, you get bonus damage. You're going to start
yeah,
mopping the floor. But they're actually teaching people how to use those vulnerabilities instead of guessing that people will figure it out. Which
yeah,
I think is really, really exceptional. But then again, that's a big part of the development philosophy. Reward the player. I mean, I think when I went up against the player-created world boss while we were at Rest, I think I got up to something stupid like 76 evades or dodges or something like that because of the fact that I had all these mobs coming at me, but my job was to actually keep them controlled, knock them down so that other people could take on this gigantic metal maul. And,
mm,
you know, here I was doing all this, and I got credit for all the dodges and all the evades. Now, do I know what it gave me? No. But it was really lovely seeing that number rise and seeing, like, it was like, I think it was like 78. And I was just in there going, wow, I didn't realize that I had actually dodged that many. But when you think about it,
mm,
it actually is. And if only we had been left with a little bit more time, we could have probably taken him down. But no, they had to shut the power off on everything. So we couldn't actually finish. But anyway, you know, the way that it works is they reward the player for doing the things that a typical gamer who likes to see themselves as an advanced player, not just a casual player,
mm,
but one who likes to
yeah,
do a little bit, not always the maximum amount of metagaming, but at least sit there and go, I understand the difference between a CC and a control. You know, there's two different types of things. CC does one thing, Control does another thing. I understand these things. But they're the person who can sit there and go, I'm a little bit of a metagamer. I actually understand this. Things like that are common sense to them. The casual player, the new player, is actually being taught from the ground up and rewarded for it if they actually follow through, which is something that really appeals to me, because I love teaching people how to play a game, but it really does help when the mechanics are already put in there for you. So you can just go, just make its bar turn purple, kill it.
Yeah, and all of those kind of dovetail into that whole momentum aspect. So if you've got a move which is, if you're getting rewarded with buffs which encourage you to do things like dodging and stuff like that, and evading and so on, that then encourage you to say keep attacking, keep picking up new mobs and stuff like that, and the kind of multi-kill bonuses and stuff like that. These are all things which really help to reinforce that if you play skillfully, if you play well, and it also brings in things like the shields mechanics as well. So if you, the shields every character has both a health bar in green and a shield bar in blue. The health bar, as you would expect, regenerates out of combat. The shield bar regenerates in combat as soon as you stop taking damage. So again, if you can lock a stun in and get them to stop dealing damage for a little bit of time, so you recover that up, then you can keep going and keep in the blue. And it's one of those other mechanics that rewards skillful play. So if you know what you're doing and you keep moving and stuff like that, you can just keep going and going and going, regardless really of the class that you're playing, because you're showing your skill at being able to manage mobs very well. And I think that's another thing that WildStar will reward players more than other games that have come before it.
I couldn't agree more. Now, I happen to be looking at the clock. We're reaching roughly about our ending point. I have a secret to share with everyone who is currently listening and watching. Mizpah is currently on a plane. However, in his possession, he is carrying what I would deem to be an incredibly important set of bits and bytes. And once he lands and we have it in our hands, we are going to be bringing you something exclusive from his meetup at Carbine, something that we don't think anyone else has yet. So you're going to want to pay attention. You need to make certain you're following us on Twitter. You need to make certain you're following us on YouTube. You need to make certain you're following us on Facebook, because we have goodies.
Yes.
And we can't tell you what they are. It sucks.
Yes.
Oh, man, it sucks so bad. Oh.
We have some exclusive WildStar shaped things to share with you. So this is not anything else. This is WildStar shaped stuff.
It's WildStar stuff, but we can't say it until we can.
Yes.
You have no clue how annoying this is for me as Goo. I have been sitting here going, I'll put it to you this way. Since Miz has been to Carbine, and he's like, cool, I've got this stuff, I need to get it to you. His upload speed was 10K. Not M, K. And I kept going, we've got to find a way for you to get this to me. We got to find a way for you to get it to me so I can get this all stuff together and all this stuff together. He's like, yeah. We couldn't. Nothing we did worked. So, believe me, I have been trying. But now that I know that he's on his way back, as soon as he lands, I'm going to be like, gimme, so we can get this thing up and explain it to you. So you can kind of expect something over the weekend from us. Normally it's a Monday to Friday thing, but trust me, this weekend is balling. Yeah. And I'm so excited. It's okay. It's almost as good as chairs, and for some people it'll be better than chairs. That's all I'm saying.
Better than chairs.
Better than chairs and hoverboards.
Maybe not hoverboards.
Oh, come on. Well, the hoverboards do work over water, so yeah.
But better than chairs.
But yes. So what I'm thinking is, do you want to end and have a show afterwards, or do you want to just continue chatting and talk with the peeps in our thingy, our chat channel? I couldn't think of what the heck that was called. I'm too excited about chairs. Screw chat. Chairs. Chat, Chuas, and Chairs. That sounds like a really interesting beer or alcoholic beverage. It also sounds like a good way to die from poison.
Yes. Definitely death from poison. Well, I was going to say, have we got any other topics that we need to cover? Because I think that's pretty much everything that we wanted to...
That pretty much covers everything that we wanted to talk about in specific. Is there anything that you guys would like... can I explain what happened to the real quote-unquote episode 2 of Cosmotronic? We had an episode of Cosmotronic and we were going to have some special guests, but unfortunately our special guests hit real-life issues. When real-life issues prop up, that tends to happen. And then we had a whole bunch of other stuff occur, including a lot of technical difficulties. So the episode 2 that you're thinking of was actually just us having a really long chat explaining to people about the game and actually introducing it to some people who'd never heard of it before and who have now find themselves incredibly excited about it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that every time I talk about WildStar, I get a little bit of excited and I start talking a little bit faster and it's oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, can you believe hoverboards, chairs? I'm just waiting for the cheese announcement. See, I'm getting the look again from Gazzy. What have I done wrong? I'm just excited about these things. Oh, Mad Drops. We did have that an episode. So this is technically episode 2, 3. I don't know. Mad Drops should be up. If it hasn't been put up yet, I need to go fix that.
It is up. So
well, it is up. It just probably
okay.
didn't get put into the
The
playlist.
reason that I kind of give you the look is because I could tell that you have this kind of natural American exuberance. And I'm sitting here with my classic British reservedness.
How is that American?
Really?
I have seen you excited people before, or you British people get excited. Granted, it was about a queue, but that's okay.
A queue? Did you really have to go there? Queue?
Okay, fine. It was about the weather. You guys were so excited that the sun was finally out. I am so much in trouble. Gazzy's gonna punch not just Mizpah in the throat, but he's gonna punch me in the throat too. Oh, I'm gonna get into so much trouble. Oh man. But yes, so technically speaking, this is episode 3. I don't know why I was thinking it was episode 2. It should be up on YouTube. I'm going to check that after we finish off with the show and everything. But is, oh, you want me to make him do a face again? Okay.
He's going to screenshot it and Photoshop it. I can tell.
Oh, well, hey, you missed the one where you were completely frozen. You were already giving me that look, and then you froze before you disconnected. So we had like a couple minutes of this very, British arrogant look coming at me. And I was just like, I hope Gazzy's frozen or he's just looking at me for a really long time. That's really creepy. Oh, God.
I don't know what you mean in terms of like a British arrogant look. I'm not arrogant in the slightest.
Oh, okay. The link that was just put in there. That's what I mean by your arrogance. There's this sort of... And I purposely, that's what you missed when you froze on me. Oh God. Oh man.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can go with that.
See, there's a little bit of arrogance in there, a little bit of British arrogance type of a thing. But yes. What I will do though is I'm going to close this off for those who are putting it on YouTube. We'll come right back. I don't know how long we're going to stick around because poor Gazzy is still ill. I need to fix the stuff and make this episode 3 and figure out why certain things aren't where they're supposed to be. I do remind you guys, please make certain that you are following us. Make certain that you are following us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as Reddit. And I guess the best way to say it is it's not arrogance, Gazzy. It's elitist condensation. Condensation? Yeah. Which...
Condensation?
not condensation. That... Condensation. Oh! You know what? Screw speaking English. Screw it. We're just going to speak something else entirely. Let's speak Rousdower.
Rousdower?
I think Rousdower is a bunch of
Yeah, probably. I could probably manage the really impressed look.
Condescension. That's the one. Elitist condescension.
Condescension,
That's the word I was
not
looking for.
condensation.
No, not condensation. Oh. But yes, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let the thingy credit roll briefly, and then we'll just come back and we'll natter with you guys. So get ready to make fun. But
Hmm.
be right back. Diddle pip to people on YouTube.